joining us today for this amazing day. It's a beautiful day out there. We're so excited that you could be here in advance of the Bay FC game today. I'm Becca Van Dyke. I'm going to be your MC. I'm going to guide us through our conversation with this amazing panel. So thank you all for being here, and thank you all for being here. I want to talk specifically about the partnership, this amazing partnership between Bay FC and Invisalign. So thank you both. Invisalign is the brand that believes that confidence changes everything. And as I said before, that's totally my jam. I believe that fully. Today's event is more than just a warm-up for the match that I talked about. It's a celebration of confidence, of leadership, and the growing movement to uplift women in sports. Invisalign is proud to stand alongside Bay FC. I'm pointing to myself, but it's my logo here. Not just as a partner, but as a supporter of a mission that we're all on. Creating opportunities that empower the next generation on and off the pitch. Confidence is contagious, and I really believe that. And that's what we're going to talk a lot about today, is confidence. Whether you're a young athlete, a future business leader, or just finding your voice, today is all about giving you the space to talk about confidence, to ask questions about confidence, and generally just to shine. I also hear there's some candy later on. Bay FC's second season is underway, and we're excited to watch our players take the pitch today against Chicago Stars FC. How many of you are here and are going to be able to watch the game later on? Raise your hand. Amazing. And then how many of you, is this your first Bay FC game? Right on. I'm excited for you to see confidence in action on that pitch today. First, let's talk about how we all got here and the context for why Bay FC and Invisalign are here together. Bay FC, in the short time of its existence, has already been dedicated to providing access to sport and building leaders like you in our community. This past year alone, Bay FC has hosted nearly 5,000 community members across 100 organizations to their home matches. Bay FC has conducted over a dozen football community clinics and held community events in each of the 9 counties of the Bay Area, just like this one, to spark confidence and connection through sports. Today is a continuation of that tradition, and thanks to partners like Invisalign, we get to amplify those efforts and spark real conversations about what it takes to lead with confidence as women, as athletes, as executives, as parents, as cameramen, as young women, as young men, all of us. So now it's my honor and it's the time to introduce this amazing panel of confident women. First, I just want to thank and introduce Kamal in the middle. Kamal Bhandal is Invisalign's Senior Vice President for Global Marketing. Kamal is an executive marketing leader with a track record of success in technology and consumer companies for building brands that drive success. Woohoo! Woohoo! Forever. I'm going to milk this. Kamal's career has spanned the intersections of consumer, health, and technology. We were just talking. You started at Intel, and then Sun Microsystems, Johnson & Johnson, and now Invisalign. You, Kamal, you hold an MBA, which is a business degree, at the University of San Francisco, an undergraduate degree at Santa Clara University. Pause. We've got some alumni. Santa Clara plays a big role in the foundation of Bay FC. We'll talk about that later. And a certificate from Stanford's Graduate School of Business. So have you heard that expression, if you can see it, you can be it? Well, that's it. You can see it, you can be it. So thank you, Kamal. Next, I want to introduce Brady. Brady is Bay FC's CEO. Brady is focused on leading the club to become an iconic, mission-driven global sports franchise, and we are on our way, so thank you. Before joining Bay FC, Brady was the Chief Commercial Officer at Former Brands, which has a portfolio of a lot of beauty products that most of us love and use. She also spent 14 years at Levi Strauss, where we actually got to work together. You're a graduate of Princeton University. I grew up in Princeton. I know this isn't about me, this is about you, but and you have your MBA, a business degree from Harvard Business School. So thank you, Brady, for being here. Got busy. And Aly Wagner, co-founder of Bay FC, an investor, promoter, broadcaster of women's sports, an entrepreneur, and our very own U.S. Women's National Team absolute legend. We are so grateful. accolades. Aly is a two-time FIFA Women's World Cup bronze medalist.
Boo.
It gets better from
It
here.
hurts. You led with that one.
Well, I'm gonna grow. Watch this. A two-time Olympic gold medalist. I have to point out, you might recognize Aly from TV. Aly is Fox Sports lead match analyst for the FIFA Women's World Cups. Aly's no stranger to the Bay Area. As we mentioned before, you went to Santa Clara, winning the national championship in 2001. With how many of your co-founders?
Two.
Two of them. Danielle
and Leslie. Danielle Slayton, Leslie Osborne, Lewis.
Yeah. You reside in the Bay Area with your husband and your 4 children. Hopefully we'll see you later today at the game.
See you later.
Yes.
All right, enough about us. Well, actually, we're still going to talk about us a little more. But let's start our conversation. Let's start the panel. I'm going to ask some questions, and we are going to open it up and have questions and time for you all to ask folks here. So think about what you might want to ask them as well. I first want to ask a question of all of you. Today's game is the Women's Empowerment night or afternoon, so we're going to celebrate women's empowerment. So on that theme, I want to just ask each of you, maybe we'll start with you, Brady, and we'll go that way. If you can share a story or perhaps a little bit about someone in your life who empowered you, and it can be empowered at work or in life, whatever you want.
Wow, it's good to go first on these.
I know, and they haven't had the questions, so we're really going to put them on the spot.
Well, and it's interesting. I think there's a lot of people. Okay. I'm here because many people have supported me, and I think that's an important learning, is that nobody gets anywhere on their own. And when you get where you're going, it's really important to turn around and help other people on their journey as well. But it's funny, I was actually talking about this with my husband last night. One of the ways that I grew up was my mom, who I'm still very close to her, and she still drives me crazy because she's my mom. But my mom always thought that I was awesome. And what I did, she thought was great. And look, I was just a normal kid, but like in my mom's eyes, and I felt it every day when I came home, and that like she believed that the sky's the limit for me. Now sometimes that was really annoying. Like one time I was like, you know, Mom, I think I'm gonna get a B+ in this class. And she was like, you are worth nothing less than an A, and you should go. So I was always like, well, gosh, Mom, like you expect me to be the best. But it instilled in me the idea that like, maybe I can try it. I don't always succeed. I fail a ton, I make tons of mistakes, but she gave me this foundation of believing like if I tried my best, that good things would happen.
Oh,
and I owe a lot of it.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Kamal, how about you?
So I'll say that my peers have played a big role. I'm a big believer that the people you spend your time with are the people that give you energy, whether that's positive energy or negative energy. And I'll say, you know, throughout my career, being a high school student, college student, in the workforce as well, it's really been that peer group, that text tribe, if you will, those girlfriends that you can reach out to at your lowest moments. And if they're tearing you down, that's usually a sign of not the place to spend your energy, but very quickly learned who are the ones that are lifting me up, who are the ones saying, yeah, you can do this, why not you, right? So I owe a lot to really that text tribe and lifting me up in those moments when we all have our doubts.
Empowerment.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I could go a couple directions with this, but I would say I would look towards my dad. Is probably the person who played the largest role in making me feel empowered growing up. My family was from Wisconsin, like came from a very small town, had nothing really, and my dad took a chance, moved his family out to California, and became an entrepreneur, and really laid the foundation for our family and understanding, at least for me, at a really young age, of like what you can do if you set your mind to something, and there's so much value in taking risks. And so I watched my dad do that. It wasn't as though he communicated it to me, I just was able to witness it. And in that process, he was always very clear with how he spoke to me and my sister. I have 3 siblings, 2 older brothers. They were mostly out of the house when I was growing up because they're a lot older. I tell them that frequently, they're really old. My older sister is just about 18 months older. So she was the person that was like closest to me, and we witnessed my dad build his businesses. But in that process, he always said to us, like, there is nothing that you guys can't do if you put your mind to it. And funny enough, he says that he named us, my sister's name is Samantha, my name is Allison, but I go by Aly. But he said he named us Samantha and Allison because we could be shortened to be Sam and Al. And that we could walk into a boardroom and people would not know that we were women until we showed up. And so he was always laying this foundation of, you guys can actually go be those leaders in business and be leaders in whatever space that you decide to spend your energy. And so that, it wasn't a conscious empowerment that I was fortunate enough to be raised in. It was just something that was a statement of existence. Like, go find what you love, put your mind to it, and you will accomplish your goals. And it's not going to be perfect, it's not going to be flawless, there's going to be so many setbacks, but this is your opportunity to go make of yourself, you know, what you want to have happen in this world. So my dad was that person for me, still is. I give him a lot of grief for actually not teaching me all about the business along the way, and I'm learning it now. But
Will he be at the game today?
He will not. He actually I thought he might be, but he won't be. He lives in Arizona for most of the year now.
Because when you're talking about him, I've
Yeah.
seen him as your biggest fan often and VFC's biggest fan, so I didn't know he was coming.
Yeah, he's a season ticket holder.
Okay, good.
So we got that going for us.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna come back to you, Brady.
All right.
You didn't come from a traditional sports background, and here you are running a sports team. How'd you make the career change from fashion, denim, and a lot of other things, but fashion and beauty to sports? What gave you the confidence to know that you could do that?
Well, I think one of the things that has been consistent in my career is that I've made a lot of changes. And so when I started my career, I started in finance. I was a banker. Then I worked in venture capital. Then I worked in consulting. And then I was like, gosh, I want to do something I truly love. And so I went to Target, and I was the furniture buyer at Target. So got to work on the whole furniture assortment. And so basically at every point in my career, and even I was at Levi's for 14 years, and basically I had a new job every 18 months. So if there's one thing that's consistent in my life is that I'm on a learning curve and feeling like I only know like half of what I should know to do what I need to do. But it's about learning and growing and learning what makes things similar. So it's really actually kind of similar running a sports team as it is running an e-commerce business, because it's about like connecting with your fans or your consumers, creating a great experience, being responsive to business trends, and building a team and empowering them to go do what they need to do. So when you make a lot of changes and take a lot of risks, I think you learn what's more similar. And by the way, you just get used to the feeling of being a little uncomfortable and knowing that you don't know everything. I also find that mode when you're learning and you're asking questions and you're really open to that, when you think you don't, before you think you know everything, is probably when you're at your most powerful, because you're hearing and receiving so much great information. It really is helping you to be a great leader.
I love that.
With the team who's doing all this amazing work and creating conversations like this one, and really getting my hands dirty, right? So that I'm in the work as opposed to trying to create strategies and plans, not being in it. That's one. And then the second is, I'm a big believer that you have to be a part of culture, and you have to feel culture in your gut as opposed to just reading about it. So as we think about becoming a brand for teens in particular, I spent a lot of time out in the community, learning the language, understanding what teens are going through, so that I can then create the best work from a brand standpoint, along with the team, to really ensure that the voices of who we want to be in the Invisalign family are really represented.
Thank you. How about that? Aly, over to you. As an athlete turned broadcaster, turned co-founder, turned entrepreneur, I was pausing because I just saw you actually talk about this somewhere else, but I want to hear it again here.
No.
When in your career as a player did you start thinking about what comes after when you have to retire from being an athlete. When did you start thinking about building a career? When did you start thinking about gathering the tools to have a career outside of being an athlete?
I would say this, like, it's really funny that you actually say that, because last night I had a conversation with some of my closest friends, and we were just talking about if there's one thing that you could have done differently in your business career, not your life, not in your personal decisions, but in your business life, what would that be? And my answer, you did not know this, was I would have started to learn business while I was a player. When, I never once thought about having a career after football. I thought that my football was going to be my life. Like when you're younger, you think that you have forever, and that you're just, what you're planning as your next phase is ultimately what really is forever. And so there wasn't this connection for me that I needed to build my skill set, and I needed to build my connections and my community while I was playing to set myself up for post-career. So that moment for me happened way too late, I think. But I think the good thing is it's better late than never. And you always, as Brady said, you always want to be learning. So what better time to learn, than when you start in this like brand new phase of your life. So you said, I was a footballer, then I went into broadcast, now I'm in business of sport. And that phase, like this is like the most, challenging, but the most rewarding part of that phase. I would say, was it part of like the reason why I was in this, are you asking, or why was I thinking about that?
Well, just when did you start, and you may have answered it, I was more thinking about when as a player did you realize, I need to start thinking about my career? What I guess I'm hearing you say is that maybe you didn't until...
I didn't until it was after I was in broadcasting. Yeah. But what I would say to you guys, after broadcasting, for sure. What I would say to you guys is, you're in one phase of your life. What is something extra that you can potentially pull in now that will help build your arsenal, your tool set, your toolkit for what comes like 5 stages down the road? Like you don't know what that's going to be. Maybe it's learning a language. Maybe it's coding. Maybe it's getting on AI and like learning about some part of the world that you never knew existed. But start to just pull in these little tools that you can at a young age. And eventually over time, you guys are gonna realize you've built this incredible foundation to set yourself up for whatever path it was that was not seen and was not foreseeable to you. That would be what I would argue for, or I would advocate for, I should say. But again, it's never too late to start that process of whatever you're interested in and exploring.
Between Invisalign and BayFC, what are some of the themes? What are some of the values that both the companies have in common? Why are we here together, other than to get the hat?
Sorry, who does not love a bucket hat?
Leslie Osborne.
Oh.
Okay, noted.
No, when we first started doing our merch, I was like, we need a bucket hat. And she's like, absolutely not, they're the worst.
Well,
they look great.
I disagree. I love them. Look, I think at BFC, we do want to be a really powerful global sports franchise. And part of that is making sure that we work with partners who share our values and who represent what we represent. So I think our partnership with Invisalign is almost like intuitive. It makes so much sense. Invisalign is all about inspiring confidence. And as you can tell from what we're talking about here today, it's really core to what AFC is. I mean, I'll tell you a personal story. The reason I really, really wanted to do this job is because I took it because I believe that we can change the world at AFC. I believe that by creating a women's sports team that is a global sports franchise and elevating these athletes on the field, getting them paid more, creating a really powerful business, creating really awesome merch, that we can change the way people see female athletes. That will help all of us change the way we see ourselves in the world. So literally, we have a chance to change the world at AFC, and Invisalign believes the same thing, right? It is the same core value of inspiring confidence and bringing about change and bringing out the best in who you are. So I'm so proud to work with Invisalign, and I feel really grateful to have such a great partner who's on this journey with us.
Well, we feel the same. You know, it was such an intuitive relationship for us because ultimately the backbone of the Invisalign brand is about confidence. But I often say you're not born with confidence. You have to learn to recognize it. And then you also have to learn to recognize that there are moments where you're not confident, right? But ultimately for us, we're big believers in investing in the business of women in sports because we want to showcase to everybody, to all of you, to every community member that we're a part of, that you can play a role in the business of women in sports, whether you're the athlete like Aly, or co-founder in the next stage of her career, or you're Brady as the CEO, or you're part of the fabulous marketing team. We just want everyone to be able to see, all of you to be able to see all these roles that you can play in the business of women in sports. And so we're really excited to have the opportunity to tell these stories because it's also important that these stories get out, right? The stories of the athletes, the stories of everyone else who's involved in BAFC so that you all can see what Invisalign is about and what BAFC is about.
I love it. We've been talking a lot about these great values, these synergies. We've been talking a lot about success. We've been talking a lot about amazing women. And we've been talking a lot about confidence. I actually now want to, this is an important conversation that I often have with my friends or my peer group, which isn't just the successes, but also to share when things didn't go right. And so, because we learn from those stories. So I actually want to ask you all, and actually we'll start with you, Aly, and we'll come this way, to talk about a time in your life when you didn't feel confident. And then how you either got over that or not, because sometimes it's fine to not as well.
I mean, how long you guys got?
Yeah. Lisa, tell us.
Yeah, yeah, Lisa, tell us. There's so many stories and moments in my life that I felt nervous and not confident and unsure. And what I would say is the more you experience those, the more you put yourself in those situations, the more you do become confident. And you build your skills and knowing that it's okay if you're not prepared, but you just aren't sure how it's going to turn out. I would say when I was growing up and I went to a local school here, there were times when I was the leader of the pack, and there were times when I was the girl that was left out, and I was the one that was made fun of. Like, those were days that I would show up and not be confident when I'd walk onto the campus, and I'd be unsure of who I'd be eating lunch with or who I'd be hanging out with at recess. Those are very real moments that probably everyone has experienced at some point in their life, and the beauty of that is it's short lasting, and there's always going to be the next day that is not your situation. And I think one of the best things that can come out of those moments is awareness that other people might be feeling that same thing. And you have the ability, you have the agency to go and pull people out of those moments if you witness it in a peer and you witness it in a friend. So those were early on for me. There's a few outside of that. When I first went into the national team camp, I was 17 years old, and I had just torn my ACL, so I was wearing like a big knee brace. And we went into residency. What's that?
Were you the youngest?
I was.
Yeah.
We went into residency in Florida, which means we were living and playing with each other for 6 months in preparation for the '99 World Cup, essentially. I was 18 actually then. And I felt I was a wreck. I was the youngest player. I'm playing, you guys, I don't know if you know these names, but Michelle Akers, Mia Hamm, Brady Chastain, of course, Christine Lilly, all of the household names that you associate with the beginning phases of women's football in the United States. They were all at this camp for 6 months, and I just was this young 18-year-old with a big knee brace on and thought that at any moment I could embarrass myself in front of these women that I looked up to. And that was one of the most trying moments, like, in my playing career, to get through and build confidence in. And again, what do you learn? You get into those situations and you freak yourself out about what could go wrong, and then you learn that most everything went okay, and most everything actually was fine. And those are the blocks that build your confidence up over time. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in one moment, but these are little stones that you get to build up and get yourself to a place where you feel like you're ultimately prepared for whatever comes your direction. So the other two I quickly hit would be being the first woman to call a men's World Cup match. And I had no idea that I would physically have the reaction I did, but I was like completely shaking and realized at the last moment how big this was for young girls, for women that wanted to call matches in the men's game, which was largely dominated by men. And it was one of those moments where I was representing not myself, but I was representing 50% of the population. That was pressure. That was a moment where I did not know how I would perform in the moment. And again, you get through it and you continue to just build up your skill set and your confidence by putting yourself in situations that make you uncomfortable. Brady said it. Put you in situations that really test you. And when you come out of them on the other side, you now have, whether you performed to the level you wanted or you didn't, you now have that as a badge of honor and something that you can carry inside of you, knowing you took a risk, and guess what? You're here tomorrow, you're here the next day. Those are the valuable moments that I really think can set yourself up for bigger things to come.
Amazing, thank you. If we had mics, I might drop it. But wait, there's more.
Well, hang on, this is not fun. Trying so hard and just being average. And so I decided to hop into some on-campus recruiting and learned all about marketing. And then I thought, wow, what have I been doing this whole time, right? So I ended up getting a job with Intel, and so I was a part of their recent college graduate program. And I was intimidated because I didn't have a business degree. I didn't have a marketing degree. So every day I felt like an imposter. But it was interesting because it was the women who were surrounding me who kind of took me in and said, okay, we're gonna help make sure that you feel safe and really are successful in this role. And I think that that'll always stick with me, and just in terms of finding that group again who's going to help you learn, and definitely something that I still try to give back in this stage. And then there were many moments along the way. At some point, after working in big companies, I decided, hey, actually I want to work in consumer, not on the tech side, but I had this high-flying career in tech, Intel, then Sun, but I always had this calling to want to try consumer, and again, had no experience, had no business being a part of it. And I had a mentor at the time, and she said, well, what's the worst that could happen? Go take this job at Johnson & Johnson. So yes, you're gonna start all over again, but you've done that. And I think it's those moments of putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations and having the belief in yourself, and also surrounding yourself with people who help lift you out of those non-confident moments.
Thank you.
Great.
I think I'll just continue
Keep going.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about this on the drive down here today. And I think the kind of weirdly, the things that give me the most confidence in my life have also been the hardest, most difficult, most confidence reducing things I've done in the moment. So my example is I've wanted to lead a business forever. That's what I want to do. I'm so proud to be doing it right now. But the first time I ever got the chance to do that was at Levi's. I got appointed to run one of the big businesses there. And I'm so proud and excited and maybe a little naive. And I kind of made some changes to how big we thought the big business could be, and I communicated it to everyone, our CEO, our board. We were going public, so I was right there in the front lines. And I miscalculated. I was just totally wrong about it. And I spent the first year of this dream job having to explain to everyone why the numbers weren't where they were supposed to be. And we would have these monthly business reviews where you had to come in and present. And I remember sitting there just dreading them, pit in my stomach, like icy cold sweat running down my body, like just pure terror. But it forced me to just keep doing the work because I knew it was what I wanted to do. I knew it was my passion. And showed up every single day. And I took the hits and I got smarter and I, understood the business better. And over time, it just got a lot better. And the next thing you knew, 3 years later, the business was huge and killing it and sort of more than we ever could have expected it could have been. But it's because we had to go through that really tough time. And going through that tough time and coming out of it and knowing that I could stay steady through a tough time is what gives me the confidence to say, yeah, I'll take on a business in a new industry because I've done it before and I know I can do it again. So it's often the hardest things that you earn the confidence over time. So I guess the advice is, if you're going through something tough, hang in there, as long as it's not damaging to you, but hang in there, because what comes out on the other side is just that incredible feeling of confidence.
Thank you, that's perfect. Well, I think that's a great note to end on. We are gonna turn it over to you all to ask some questions, but I do wanna say thank you to our panelists, and thank you for you all. One of the big themes that comes through for me is that you aren't born with confidence. Everyone has talked about how you work at it like an athlete. You work at it, you've talked about it, something that you get, that's earned, it's learned, and so thank you. That gives me confidence on those days where I'm feeling a little bit less than perfect to know, you know what? I'm just like everyone else and I just keep working on this. So thank you all. Thank you so much. And then maybe, I don't know who, Lisa, you can tell us how we want to just turn it over to questions.
Everyone has some questions, so we would love for you to ask one to the panelists.
This is a confidence building moment.
Absolutely.
Who's first?
Oh, we got one.
Awesome. One of your own, you can ask one of your own.
Okay, this is for Ms. Frank. What does leadership mean to you, and how can young women develop it?
For me, leadership means kind of leading from the back, right? Part of being a leader is supporting your team. Like, you have to help to set a vision for what you're trying to do. And then you have to step back and have confidence in the people on your team that they're going to execute it. But that means being supportive, right? That means understanding what they need to be successful. That means leaning in and leaning out where you're needed. So leadership is a lot about supporting others. It's also about oftentimes, frankly, leading by example. So you can't ask people to do something that you're not willing to do, and it means taking a back seat. Often it's the least glamorous thing, right? It's you get things when they are too hard or unpleasant for other people, it comes to you, and you have to embrace that and love it. And how you can develop it, I think, is be a person of high integrity, show up every day, frankly, things like being a good friend, being a good member of a community, being a good member of your family. That's leadership, because it's not always easy, but it really, I think being a good leader is really about being a good person and having a strong sense of self and integrity, and that puts you right on that road. Oh, and be your authentic self. There's no one model for any of it. Yeah.
What's some advice you'd give to young women about being your most empowered self?
Come on, why don't you take that one?
Yeah. So a couple things that come to mind, right? I mean, I think one is calling it like you see it, right? So when you're in a group, whether it's with your friends, whether it's in a community environment, whatever it might be, but actually using your voice and knowing that your voice has power, right? And not just calling out the problems, but really finding a way to make the situation better. I think that's huge. And then the second thing that I would just say is to be an empowered leader, stay curious, right? Really figure out what are the things that you're curious about, and then put yourself out there to learn about those things and hold on to that curious mindset through everything. Never assume that you're the expert. Always just have that beginner's mindset to say, hey, I'm a student of whatever it is that you're looking to learn about or advance in.
And I would just add, know what your non-negotiables are. So you have your North Star, and just know what you're not willing to do in order to achieve, where hopefully you're gonna be leading the rest of the group around you.
Well,
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Have you ever felt underestimated in your sport because of your gender, and how do you respond?
Yes, that is the story of my career. No, it's a great question. So a great example was after we won the 2004 Olympics, our CBA, our contracts were up with US Soccer, and they were up for renegotiation. And so we entered into a phase with US Soccer to negotiate what this next contract would look like for all the women in the program that would land on the national team. And in that negotiation, I'll never forget, it was this hotel room that we all met in. We had US Soccer leadership, players present at the table, and this was my first experience with that. And they said, well, we can go dark on you. And by going dark on us, that meant that they could schedule no games. And if they scheduled no games, we made no money. In 2004, we did not have the NWSL. In 2004, the previous league, the WSA, had just folded. And so we had no place to play as professional footballers if they didn't schedule games for us. So that was their leverage over us, right? And long story short, they scheduled the lightest year that we ever had in our games. It was a blessing for me because I went overseas and played for Olympique Lyonnais, which reinvigorated my love for the game and gave me so much more back than I could have ever imagined if even if I just stayed in the US. But I share that because they weren't having that same conversation with the men. The men were making a lot more than we were making. They also had their professional game, and they were not, arguing over they could get $55 for per diem. They were getting hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the contracts and the monetary value placed on us as female footballers was much lower than our male counterparts at that time, and that continued to be the case for many years thereafter. But I would just say, you've got to, that being your empowered self is you stand up for what you believe in. You try to stand up and fight to bring more value to the rest of the people around you that are in your similar situation. And that was actually one of the reasons that we founded Bay. The idea behind Bay FC was really to prove that a women's sports club, a women's sports franchise could stand shoulder to shoulder with men's sports franchise around the world and be that valuable. That's how you start to change, women versus men in sport. And it's not versus, it's us just standing up and claiming what we think, or proving what we deserve or value. Does that make sense?
I think we had a question over here.
What's one piece of advice that you young women who want to break into sports or leadership roles?
Aly, do you want to take that, to break into sports and leadership roles?
What piece of advice would you give? I would just say, kind of go back to one of the things I said earlier, which is you said be curious, Kamal. Start to be curious now and start to try to understand and follow the trends. You guys are existing in this incredible time, for better or for worse, by the way, but the acceleration of changes that's happening in sport it's happening at a rate that we haven't seen before. And so you guys can witness this. And when you witness what is happening in our ecosystem, you're gonna learn so much. Because you're gonna recognize, okay, this is how people used to consume sport. Maybe it was on Sunday and you'd stay home and watch NFL games, right? But now, are people just staying home and watching sport on TV, or are they watching it here? Are they watching an iPad? Are they watching the game there and having a second screen here? Start to pay attention to the trends that you're seeing in sports and the business of sport. And the best way to even do that at a more granular level is ask BFC for an internship. Reach out, really ask.
Totally.
People, I'll tell you, I don't have anyone that handles my social media account anymore. I would love someone to take it over. And in that process, you actually get to learn. The reason I say this is there's so many internship opportunities out there. I would encourage you to do the research, but ask the question, where can I help you? And in that process, you are going to be receiving so much in return.
Well, and one other thing I would just say about business that makes it really cool versus a lot of other jobs is that it's basically a lifelong apprenticeship.
Right.
So just learning, just show up. If you want a leadership opportunity and you're interested in a company, ask for an internship, ask if you can come for a week and shadow. People want to bring people into their careers and their communities, and so, and you'll just learn just from hearing and seeing, and then, gosh, what a leg up you have on the next person, the next year that you're ready for an internship. So it's just all about learning.
100%, raise your hand, ask to connect, right? Everyone's willing to help. I think that's the thing that I would say is never underestimate like how much people are willing to help, right? If you just ask for it.
And that takes confidence, so.
It does.
You got it though. Great. Question?
So you mentioned social media right now, so like, social media is kind of big right now. And I feel like for a lot of athletes, including myself, it's a way to kind of get connections with coaches. So I guess my question is like, growing up, like what was your way of getting connections? Was it social media or was it like reaching out yourself? Well, thank you.
No, it was not social media, but I was just lucky enough. I was very fortunate, I will say, in my career, in my life, to be good at soccer pretty young. So I was obsessed with it. So when I say that, when we talk about confidence, like this is one thing that I don't think anyone hit on and we should have. It's preparation and doing the work. Doing the work when no one is watching. And so I was lucky enough to love the game, and I fell in love with it at 5 years old. Like that's weird. I'm weird. And I just would train and train and train. So I was lucky to be pulled into like the state team and make that. And then the regional team, that was actually how we got discovered. It was called Olympic Development Program, ODP. And so made the state team, made the regional team, and then from there went in to make the national team. And every one of those moments, I was, of course, a nervous wreck, and I had no idea what my competition was going to look like. But that was ultimately the platform that I was able to be discovered on by the national team coach when I was U16 was April Heinrichs. You might know that she went on to coach me as the senior team, for 2004 Olympics, for instance. So that was the way that we were discovered. But you guys have so many tools at your disposal to take your clips, get your video, get that into the hands of coaches where they can really see what talent you have. And so there's really limited barriers for your generation, and that's, you get to take agency and really drive your career at such a young age. Like that's a skill, that is a valuable skill that you guys will use in your playing career, but take with you into business as well.
Maybe one more question and then we'll head down to the headshot station and we can do a little bit more networking and ask more questions if that sounds good.
Great. Here we go.
I was going to ask, what are some qualities that you really want to have to seem more valuable in the eyes of like an employer or a coach, and to be like a real asset? What are the things that you want to showcase or
It's like so easy, literally. Be a hard worker and have a good attitude. Like that.
Yeah, and
Not a mystery.
building on that is do the work when no one's watching, right? I mean, I think that applies to sport, it applies to business, and raise your hand to do the things that no one else wants to do, right? Always, and you'll always create value in that. One other thing around social that I'll just share is be thoughtful about what you put onto your social media. If you don't want to have a future boss see it, don't post it. It's one of those things that's hard to take down when it's up.
And I would add, from just a skill point, have a voice, have an opinion. I think so many times people are afraid to speak out and say something that is contrary to what might be the accepted viewpoint, but don't be afraid of that if that's who you are inside. And if that's not the right environment for you because that's not accepted, then you'll find the right spot for that voice. But don't quiet the voice, because I don't think that leads to best outcomes.
Well, and Aly, I think that's excellent advice, and I say that with a lot of love and respect. I have a son, but young men are not afraid to use their voices, for better or worse. So I think everyone should not be afraid to use their voices. And I would encourage everyone to show up, feel confident in who you are. It's a journey, but know that your voice matters and what you say matters.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you all for your voices today, and thank you, panel, for your voices. And we're going to carry on, right? There's headshots people can take, and more one-on-one networking, is that right?
Yep.
Great.
We head down the hall.
Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, I have my, that would be after.
You guys learn something? You're like, no.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
I'll make this happen.
You're welcome. You gonna wear your bucket All right, ready? Yeah, something to take it.
I got you.
I like the different angles. Yeah, nice meeting you guys.
Yeah.